U.S. foreign policy and emergency security measures after September 11th. The terrorist attack on the World Trade Center shocked the country to such an extent that the United States undertook dramatic strategic policy changes in the name of strengthening national security. This work examines U.S. foreign policy in its direct connection with the emergency security measures provoked by the tragedy. After the tragic events of September 11th, America began to work with the countries of the Middle East to involve them in the fight against the terrorist threat. This article describes the history of the expanding spheres of interaction between the United States and Jordan, which is perceived by American politicians as a moderate country that does not pose a terrorist threat. The article demonstrates America's collaborative intentions in the context of the global fight against terrorism and therefore reveals a given topic. The article examines how politicians in Italy since 2001 have shown an interest in global events and expressed a desire to adapt to the changes taking place around the world. This article demonstrates the level of influence exerted on other countries by the American example of organizing counterterrorism policies. This article analyzes the policies of the Bush administration, and in particular the rhetoric of the president himself, from the point of view of the Catholic religion. The religious ethical category turns out to be quite important for American politics. In particular, the religious issue is sharpened in the context of the fight against terrorism, presenting the situation as a conflict of sacred values. The article demonstrates the ethical side of U.S. foreign policy and seems particularly relevant. This article offers a unique perspective on U.S. political action in Latin America after 9/11. The author emphasizes that attention to these territories has especially increased since the states have special influence in these countries. The risk for the United States was represented by the interests of other major powers and the likelihood of local revolutions. The article is useful for research in that it shows the non-obvious motivations of American foreign policy. The article considers the concept of terrorism as a global phenomenon that was assessed as such precisely in the era of the Bush Jr. administration. Ryan examines the attempt by the U.S. authorities to create transnational links to control and prevent terrorist attacks. This study gives an idea of the actions in the field of foreign policy as inevitably associated with the structure of the entire world community. The article describes the phenomenon of bipartisanism in the politics of the states and, in particular, in their foreign policy. Bipartisan thinking often manifests itself in decisions of Congress, despite the external impression of an ever-increasing polarization of opinions. In particular, the article describes the decisions jointly made by Democrats and Republicans after the tragedy of September 11th, which makes the article relevant to this bibliography. The article examines in detail the reasons why the war on terrorism, declared by the United States in 2001, turned out to be a failed political campaign. The article emphasizes that as a result of America's counterterrorism efforts, the threat of attacks has not been diminished. The main mistake of American political forces is the militaristic policy of attack. The article is relevant for research as it considers both the reasons and the results of the failed political maneuvers in the Middle East.